This time on StandardBred. In 2015, the Auckland Trotting Club, now surrounded by big city hubbub, embarked on an urban living and retail project that could put the ATC at the head of a battling horse racing pack.
I'm a very optimistic person, I'm a very positive person, so my thing is go big or go home because we didn't have a lot of choices to us.
It's a lifeline on the one hand and a death knell on the other, isn't it?
StandardBred is supported by a stable of key players in the New Zealand standardbred breeding and racing industries. Aucklanders have long been wanting a piece of Potter's Paddock in Epsom. Trotting and pony clubs have been pushing each other around for the right to hold race meetings and shows since the 1880s. The Auckland and Otahuhu pony and trotting clubs won the battle in 1890. In the 1¼ centuries since, the now Auckland Trotting Club has been nothing but innovative. It introduced night trotting to New Zealand in 1958, before any of its neighbours, or as Auckland instinctively sees them, competitors. In 2015, the Auckland Trotting Club, now surrounded by big city hubbub, embarked on an urban living and retail project that could put the ATC at the head of a battling horse racing pack. A real understanding of the club's situation geographically and financially was needed, and quickly.
You know, at the time we were declining on every single statistic that was going. So we were in really, I call it defib, and we were trying to resurrect the industry again.
It's widely acknowledged that the halcyon days of harness racing, horse racing in general, might be history forever. The whole racing industry is fading on its run. If someone, anyone, anything doesn't pull all stops to secure a future, it could falter, perhaps fatally this time. In racing terms, Dominique Dowding is an outsider. She's a Canadian who's come to New Zealand via Canterbury to Auckland and is the first woman to hold the lead role of the Auckland Trotting Club in its 125 plus years. She's a game changer, ready to grab the reins.
It became apparent that we needed more audiences, new audiences, and we actually needed to reinvigorate the whole entire site so that we were becoming a destination again and people would want to come back to the races. So that was basically the first stage of the premise. The second stage of the premise was obviously trying to generate at least $4 million in net profit so that we could put that back into stakes and try and turn around the sustainability of the industry in the north. I'm a very optimistic person, I'm a very positive person, so my thing is go big or go home because we didn't have a lot of choices to us. Our industry is in abject decline and we've been slowly turning that around with the new rating system, increased stakes, and this development will contribute to the ongoing increasing of stakes as we move along and help the industry grow again.
Perhaps due to its governorship setup, based around clubs, committees, hard-working volunteers and enthusiasts, turning the deafening call for change into any effective action for the racing game often comes too slowly or gets lost in translation completely. Even at a club that prides itself on innovation and commercial viability.
We went to our first meeting. We didn't get everything right. We went to our first meeting and we tried to talk about a commercial proposition. It wasn't something that necessarily I supported at that time, but we decided that that was the easiest and quickest way to get away. And then thankfully the members said that we needed to do some more work, and we actually developed more and more of the concept that we had come up with for an urban village. And that one is the one that got almost unanimous support through our membership. We realized that we had this piece of property that had been zoned for commercial, and it was really a piece of land that nothing was happening on.
A business-focused CEO combined with a sense of urgency from recent club presidents, including StandardBred stalwart and current Vice President Rod Kroon, as well as a crucial Auckland City Council sign-off, have opened up the opportunity for the ATC to deliver desperately needed dividends.
We spent about 10 years getting the zoning change actually into a mix so that we could do the apartments. But once the unitary plan came in, there was all of a sudden it was encouraged to do what we were doing. Before it wasn't.
When we came on the land, the property was worth 45 million. We actively went across working with the unitary plan and trying to get a mixed-use zone and trying to actually create more value in the property. So we've gone now from, as I said, 45 million to 165 million.
The rezoning of old Potter's Paddock for both commercial and residential or mixed use is the foundation then for lucrative commercial outcomes within 2, maybe 3 years. At least that's the hope. Can you sort of précis or outline the initial stage that's in process now?
Right now we are at about level 1 on one site and we're almost at level 1 on the other site. It will be completed by next year. It's 246 apartments, they're luxury type units, and then we have 5,000 square metres of retail. In the retail space we've already had 75% of our retail let. And then in our apartments, we've sold out. So we sold over 295 million in sales.
And so this is just the start. There are more stages guaranteed on the way, or are you sitting back and waiting to see how this one goes?
No, we definitely have already started doing our economics on the next stage, and it does stack up. So we'll wait till the new year and then reassess whether we wish to start going through the consent process. Our members have approved it, so that's completely done. And now it's just a matter of timing.
Were you surprised by the uptake of the apartments in the retail?
I'm really bullish. I really believed in this project. I really believe that this was our panacea to ensuring our sustainability for the future, and I really knew that it would turn this club around, and I still believe that strongly.
So for Alexandra Park, the urban living and retail focus seems sound and in good hands. It looks virtually a home run at a boardroom presentation level. So when you came here, you thought this was a no-brainer to a degree?
It wasn't a no-brainer. This was probably my most challenging part of my career. It was really interesting to go from such a corporate commercial background and then come into a membership-based type, cooperative type club. And so it was so interesting, all the sliding pieces, and I think that's what keeps me here. It's so interesting. Every day is, different, and every challenge is a unique challenge because you're dealing with the economy of a whole entire industry. You're dealing with the entertainment sport, you're dealing with a function centre, and then you're dealing with one of Auckland's largest brownfield developments in a long time. So it's great.
The ATC has started building it, and there's confidence they will come from all corners, from all walks of life.
The interesting thing is everybody always thinks I'm selling the land, and getting rid of the racetrack. That is definitely not our intent. Our intent is actually to completely transform this whole entire frontage so that it becomes one of the best tracks in Australasia, if not the world. So we're very committed to that, and we're not losing sight of it. I think we're luckier than most in that we have a prime position in Auckland. Our catchment area is a very big catchment, and it's a very lucrative catchment. So we didn't try to be a downtown developer trying to get investors from overseas. We focus very much on our empty nesters, our urban young professionals, and our retirees, people who just want to have a lock-up and leave. And we've done extremely well in all three of those demographics.
Turning the data and the new peripheral punter or fan into a more regular participant has to be front and centre if harness racing is to have a future in Auckland or anywhere.
We're up 16% on our theme nights, so we're attracting more audiences. General public admissions are up. We do track all of that because naturally that's how we make our business work, and we can track that through our bars, our food, our counts, everything. So
what about repeat experiences? Do they sort of go to the trots once and that's pretty much it?
No. Actually, we're finding that we have now some regular customers who are actually coming back 4 or 5 theme nights because it suits them as a bit of a social kind of get out of the office and go and have some fun for the night.
It's about a night out. They can drink a nice wine, they have a nice meal, and the horses become entertainment. And a percentage of those people that start coming regularly, a percentage of their own horses become sponsors, administrators, because we've got this huge gap. We've got 50, 60-year-olds running the industry, and there's no one after that.
Meanwhile, back at the coalface, it can't happen soon enough, and for some, this run may have come too late.
Good days on the horizon, so we hear, maybe.
Yeah, well, the Auckland Trotting Club's done a great job. They're actually keeping the game afloat, I believe. But, you know, as far as the projected boom in purse money is concerned, I've heard it all before and I'll believe it when I see it, you know.
Like to know more about racing or breeding standardbreds? Find the New Zealand Standardbred Breeders on Facebook or go to the Breeders website.
A rock and roll dance is 2 lengths clear.
A rock and roll dance, a multiple world record holder, the richest 2-year-old of his year, the winner of the Meadowlands Pace at 3.
A rock and roll dance, 148-1 in the Meadowlands Pace.
His first 2-year-olds are now here. He's now one of the leading first season sires in North America and is now set to make his mark on the racetracks of New Zealand. Simply no other sire is better positioned for the future.
Speed. You know it when you see it.
This horse is definitely the fastest. You know, he can just absolutely fly.
He's watching an undefeated US 2-year-old of the year who returned at 3 to win the Meadowlands Pace in world record time. He's watching is now siring outstanding foals. Book your mare today. He's watching, standing at Alabar.
Terra to Love is storming home. The 4-year-old Terra to Love and Jimmy Curtin won it. Here's Terra to Love again. Terra to Love comes at them. Terra to Love won the cup. It is still Terra to Love. He's going to do it. It is the greatest cup win of all time. The Gold Cup of Ricky May has won the greatest race you will ever see.
Standardbred is supported by a stable of key players in the New Zealand standardbred breeding and racing industries. If horse racing has a healthy dose of one thing, it's scepticism. In New Zealand, those grinding at the grassroots for the game they love have well-founded reservations about any corporate rescue missions. Government tax breaks or industry funding injections are well and truly spent by now. Clubs and tracks haven't merged, and stake monies, well, they've stagnated. The racing lives of the horse men and women aren't nearly as lucrative as they might have been.
So in its heyday, how many trainers and how many horses used to do the thing here, you think?
Oh, look, you know, well, yeah, it's pretty depressed at the moment compared to what them days. In them days, there would probably be threefold what there is now.
Ray Green's into his 70s now. His training craft has been called on by Lincoln Farms racing team for 2 decades. The Green Machine has put the green colours into winners' circles across Australasia, especially at his home track, Alexandra Park.
Really, years ago I worked for Jack Hughes and Len Bayer when it was first sort of built here. I understand Bill Hoskins, Jack Hughes' main owner, he actually donated the land here for a training track. So it's been here for quite a while.
Ray concedes those from his era have probably had their time. And it was a great time, even if racing's boom years are almost too long ago to remember.
When I was a kid, like you mentioned Peter Wolfenden or Cardigan Bay or something, everybody knew what you were on about. But these days, if you said, oh, have you heard of Tony Herlihy or Maurice McKendry, they'd say, who? You know, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know what you were on about. So yeah, we've sort of lost our way a little bit, I feel. Yeah, I remember at Auckland we used to have the place to be packed. There was, I think, 20,000 people turned up to see Cardigan Bay go round it several times, and you know, it was kids, families, you know, they sort of chased a whole generation of people off years ago. They alienated a whole generation of people, and of course now you ask most people, you go into Auckland City and ask somebody where Alexandra Park is, they wouldn't have a clue, they wouldn't know what you were talking about.
It's easy to dismiss such recollections as the old school living in the past. But looking forward, they aren't the only players asking if the game they're passionate about has been left in any condition for a future generation to flourish in.
Is there evidence of young guys wanting to fill the void?
There's a few young guys that are keen. It's harder for them these days because unless the Auckland Trotting Club provides them with a platform to operate from, it's nigh on impossible to purchase property around here. You know, you can't buy anything under $1 million.
As well as being disappointed with their lot in the end, Ray and others are wondering if a next generation will even get a turn at making trotting a sustainable, quality lifestyle for themselves.
Where are you going to house the rush of people if they come?
If they come, we definitely have some strategies, but the core strategy is Franklin. We're very committed to the Franklin Training Centre. We do still have space on that site to build more barns if we needed to. We definitely have enough space for the paddocks and everything else. So we've done that extremely successfully. That's gone from 120 horses in work up to 240 horses in work.
So what about the expansion of, say, Pukekohe City? Does that place a racetrack in the middle of it in any sort of jeopardy in future terms?
Again, we tried to protect that with the Auckland City Council by putting an equine precinct over our land. There is future urban all around us, and there's a lot of gentlemen, you know, who are in the industry retiring and selling their farms, which is a real concern as well. But they have to move on too. So yeah, we're very strategic, and we definitely keep our eyes on where the market's going and whether we have any threats. And right now, we feel quite secure that Franklin's fine, and we're fine with it.
Yeah, well, Lincoln Farms has been sold. Morris McHenry's property's been sold for, I presume, residential. I believe it's all residential eventually. This place will be no different. Derek Ball, I believe, sold. Land values around here have skyrocketed, and this place would be worth a lot of money. I can't see how they could justify leaving it as a training centre when it's worth all that money. I mean, I would imagine its days are numbered.
We may have to build another part from Pukekohe, another place, put purpose-built stables in there, accommodation, the whole lot, but we'll wait till that happens. By then we will have the money to do things like that.
To join the harness racing and breeding conversation, you can make contact with your StandardBred breeders associations across New Zealand.
A rock and roll dance is 2 lengths clear.
A rock and roll dance, a multiple world record holder, the richest 2-year-old of his year, the winner of the Meadowlands Pace at 3.
A rock and roll dance, 148-1 in the Meadowlands Pace.
His first 2-year-olds are now here. He's now one of the leading first season sires in North America and is now set to make his mark on the racetracks of New Zealand. Simply no other sire is better positioned for the future.
Speed. You know it when you see it.
This horse is definitely the fastest. You know, he can just absolutely fly.
He's watching an undefeated US 2-year-old of the year who returned at 3 to win the Meadowlands Pace in world record time. He's watching is now siring outstanding foals. Book your mare today. He's watching, standing at Alabar.
Terra to Love is storming home. The 4-year-old Terra to Love and Jimmy Curtin win it. Here's Terra to Love again. Terra to Love comes up them. Terra to Love won the cup. It is still Terra to Love. He's going to do it. It is the greatest cup win of all time. The Gold Cup of Ricky May has won the greatest race you will ever see.
Has racing left its run too late?
Well, they're obviously trying to elevate the game into, to the upper echelon, if you like, of racing, sport, and they're doing a great job, but whether it's enough.
Or is there one runner in clear air, coming with an undeniable bid just in time for the lost and next generations?
So for the racing fraternity, Rod, and for the players, how does this thing translate in layman's terms for them reading this project?
Well, stakes, let's talk about stakes. So last year, per an average meeting, a non-premier meeting, we were 118,000 in total. This year we've put 1.1 million into it, so it's now 145 per meeting, average of 14.5 per race. Next year, within the next 12 months, when the first development's finished, it's going to be another 40,000 per race, so we're going to go to 185. There's things being implemented at the racing board which will give us similar amounts again, and then we've got building number C coming through here. There's 2 buildings there, and when they come through and Winston's money comes through, which he did deliver last time, so we're happy with that, I think we can get to 25,000-30,000 in the next 3 or 4 years. There's a few of buts in there, but that's our aim.
Couldn't keep up. Couldn't keep up.
Anyone thinking this Alexandra Park urban and retail project might be a lucrative exercise in real estate, but not much about harness racing, will get pulled up short by Dominic Dowding.
First of all, the profits generated by the development are reinvested in, in a way, by the interests that we'll be actually putting back into racing. On top of that, we have ongoing retail. So in our 5,000 square metres of retail, that generates, again, a rental income that will just drop straight to the bottom line and be reinvested again into stakes. So the goal for us is to get to 25,000 within probably the next 2 to 3 years for every race run here at Alexandra Park. So that's a very definitive goal for us.
To retain existing owners and to attract new ones, it's got to have some financial ability to actually get square or make some money and enjoy it. But at the moment, you've got to win about 4 races just to break even for the year with our training fees here. If we get it up to, say, 30, you win 2 races, 2 lots of 15 to the owner, that's 30,000. It's probably what it costs to have a horse trainer in the North here now.
Well, I don't know what they're going to be racing because there's not that many horses around, so we're under 3,000 foals on the ground now. I can't see how they can lift that overnight. It takes years for that to sort of come back up to how it was.
There are some hurdles in the home stretch. If any trotting club understands profit margins, output versus income, it's the ATC. Always leaders lifting stake monies, for example, but the anticipated avalanche of horses and new attendees, the permanent participants, hasn't eventuated so far.
Do you think it'll be more owners and breeders wanting to place their horses with people who are already established in this area rather than a flood of, say, South Island trainers all of a sudden setting up satellite stables or moving?
Yeah, well, Robert Dunn's already sort of established himself up here. He's got a sort of satellite stable up here. And the only problem at the moment, that's the only thing holding those guys back down there, is there's just no facilities here to cater for them. They need to build more facilities here to cater for trainers. I mean, if you compare this place with Menangle, you've got Tim Butt and Mark Jones are setting up over there in Menangle, satellite stables. And I don't see why it would be, if the purse money came up like it's predicted or projected, I would imagine a few trainers would settle up here. But of course they've got a lot of work to do to create an environment for them.
I think they'll look here and see 30 grand stake and maybe down south 10, and well, we've got a reasonable horse, but it's no champion, so let's send it up there to their top 10, 20 trainers. So that's what I think will happen. Apart from their premiers, when they'll bring their own teams up.
Auckland has always been a competitive club, the tallest poppy with an instinct to be the best in the business. And now its leaders are realising and developing the Alexandra Park venue, and they have a business plan aiming high for Auckland and harness racing in general.
Every club can't do what we're doing because they're not necessarily in the right area to maximise their value, or they're not in the right economy, or economic kind of hub to garner those sorts of success stories. Now, we've done what we have to do, and if we end up being a power broker, it wouldn't be in a power broking, let's tell the rest of the industry what to do, but we do have some very great ideas of how we believe we can change our industry here in the north, and that's what we're focused on.
The sceptics, when will the penny drop? When will the dollar drop, you think?
I think next year when that's finished, people are living in there and our stakes are, getting 18.5, even close to 20 grand average.
If Alexandra Park's urban living and retail project delivers, and the people come, the players, from breeders to owners to trainers and their horses, will have an opportunity to make a viable living in a competitive, compatible racing environment.
Is there any scenario where this can't work?
No.
Not in your mind?
Oh, well, no, definitively not. I mean, even in our worst case scenario, we're still making beyond what our members have, we promised our members. And I do believe that as we continue to replenish and revitalize our own asset, we will have a different audience. They might be more passive, to go back to your point about some of those tracks that have casinos on site. They might be sitting in a restaurant and the race happens to be happening, but at least we're having an audience and we're actually exposing the sport to a whole new paradigm of people.
Where does that put the Auckland Trotting Club? At the peak of a melting iceberg, or on top of the harness racing world?
It's a lifeline on the one hand and a death knell on the other, isn't it? Like these other clubs and that won't be able to compete, and so how do you sort of correlate it all? I don't know.
If it works, when it comes to fruition,
yes,
where does it put the Auckland Trotting Club, you think?
Well, we want to be a world-class facility, to be honest. That's what we're aiming for. We're not competing with the rest of New Zealand or even Australia. We need to be a world-class facility. And I think once we do these stands here, I'm looking over here to our existing stands, once they're done properly and this whole place is buzzing with people, I think we can do that.
The stage is set. The audience about to be wooed. The question is, can the players put the show on? Next time on StandardBred, the initially unlikely but progressively predictable story of New Zealand's champion breeder of standardbred racehorses.
At 15, I announced to the world, I've said this many times, that I was going to have a horse farm.
Brian West concedes he's in the twilight of his pro horse breeding career.
So champion breeder of New Zealand now after how long?
43 years.
But the former supermarket supply salesman has his horse enterprise producing its greatest results ever.
It's taken literally a lifetime to put together.